Welcome to Starbound Valor HFY. Subscribe now and dive into daily epic sci-fi adventures, where humanity always rises. Alarm screamed across the human command ship horizon as the quiet morning shift shattered into chaos. Officers looked up from their screens with wide eyes, hands shaking as red lights filled the bridge. The ship had been patrolling the edge of human space for years, but nothing had ever triggered the highest alert code. Captain Arlen stepped forward, gripping the edge of the main console as a loud buzzing sound echoed through every corner of the ship. It was not just an alarm. It was something deeper, something that felt like it came from inside the walls. Technicians tried to reset the systems, but the panels flickered again and again, showing only one message: unknown signal detected. No one spoke at first. Even soldiers who had survived wars, invasions, and deadly missions stood frozen. The silence on the bridge felt heavy, like invisible hands pressing on their lungs. Captain Arlen finally broke the silence with a calm but tense voice. "Someone talk to me. What are we looking at?" His sensors officer turned slowly, sweat running down his forehead. "Sir, the signal is not from any human ship, and it's not from any known alien race. It is something completely new." The buzzing sound grew louder, turning into a sharp pulse that made everyone flinch. The sound seemed to cut straight through their ears. The lights dimmed for a second, and then the main screen turned black. For a moment, the entire bridge held its breath, staring at the dark display. Then a single red line appeared on the screen, a jagged waveform, shaking violently, like something alive. The comms officer whispered, "This signal, it is not random. It looks like a warning." Before anyone could ask questions, the whole ship trembled. A deep vibration passed through the metal floor, and everyone grabbed onto something. "What was that?" a young soldier shouted, panic rising in his voice. A second officer yelled back, "Multiple jump signatures detected. Enemy fleet entering our sector." Panic spread like fire. No one was ready for this. Human space had been quiet for years. There was no sign of danger, no political tensions, no battles expected. Yet now thousands of unidentified ships appeared on the scanner, surrounding the area like a hungry pack closing in. Captain Arlen stared at the screen as one enemy signature turned into 10, then 100, then thousands. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No one has a fleet this big." The officers tried to focus, calling out numbers and updates, but their voices shook. The enemy ships were fast, too fast, jumping closer with every second. Human defense fleets across the region began sending warning messages, short ones, because most were cut off mid-sentence. Static filled the room, followed by screams from distant ships. Every new sound only added more fear. One of the junior officers whispered, "Sir, we can't win this." Those words nearly broke the bridge. The truth was clear. Horizon was just one ship. Even the entire human border fleet could not match what was coming. The enemy fleet was spreading like a shadow, ready to swallow everything. Captain Arlen turned to his communications officer. "Send a sector-wide emergency alert. Command needs to know. Activate Project Blackstar." The room fell silent again. Every officer turned their head slowly. Those words carried weight. Fear, mystery, history. Project Blackstar was something only High Command talked about in secret rooms. Most believed it was just a myth, a story whispered by old soldiers during long nights. Some said it was a weapon. Others said it was a ship built long ago, hidden because it was too powerful, too dangerous. Some even believed it was alive. The comms officer hesitated, his hands shaking. "Sir, are you sure?" "Do it," Captain Arlen ordered, voice firm. "We have no choice." The officer pressed the red key. A long, deep tone echoed through the ship, different from any other sound. Heavy, ancient, like something that had slept for centuries, was suddenly waking up. As the message transmitted through deep space, the enemy fleet began to spread formation. Dozens of alien ships moved forward, glowing with strange blue lights. Their weapons warmed up, ready to erase every human ship in their path. Horizon's pilot shouted from the front, "Enemy ships charging weapons. They are targeting us." Captain Arlen stood tall. "Prepare to fire. We fight until the last second." But even he knew the truth. This battle was already lost. Their weapons were small compared to the dark storm coming toward them. Still, the humans refused to surrender. A loud crash shook the ship again. Panels sparked. The crew braced themselves. On the main screen, a blinding blue beam shot past the horizon, slicing 2 human ships in half. Silence hit the bridge again. Pure shock. Pure fear. One officer cried out, "Where's Blackstar? Did it even receive the signal? Does it even exist?" Captain Arlen did not answer. He could only watch as the enemy fleet closed in. The red signal waveform still shook on the screen, as if warning them again and again. The Horizon crew slowly realized they were seeing the beginning of something far bigger than a battle. They were witnessing the start of a war no human had ever imagined. And far away, deep under a forgotten moon, something ancient began to stir. Deep beneath the surface of a forgotten moon, far from human colonies and enemy eyes, a giant metallic door slowly began to tremble. Dust fell from ancient walls as hidden engines deep underground rumbled for the first time in decades. The chamber was dark, silent, and untouched by anyone living. No one came here. No one even knew this place existed, except a few people in high command. But tonight, everything changed. A long red light flickered on the ceiling, then another, and another, until the entire chamber glowed in a faint red hue. A loud voice, cold and mechanical, echoed through the empty halls. USS Blackstar, reactivation sequence detected. Power level rising. The words traveled through metal corridors, like a ghost waking from a long sleep. The floor shook. A massive shadow rested at the center of the chamber, a ship larger than any human warship, almost frightening in shape. It had no smooth curves like modern ships. Instead, its dark black armor looked sharp, jagged, almost alive. Its surface absorbed all light around it, making it look like a piece of deep space had been carved out and hidden beneath the moon. Engineers stationed at the secret base ran toward the giant observation window, their faces pale. They had heard stories, but no one had believed Blackstar would ever wake again. One older engineer, Lisa Grant, whispered, "I thought Blackstar was only a backup project. I didn't think they'd actually activate it." Another replied, "If they did, that means something terrible is happening out there." The ground rumbled harder as thick metal chains lifted off the ship's surface, releasing it from its long sleep. The entire chamber filled with the sound of old engines, forcing themselves to life. Blackstar's black plates opened slightly, revealing a deep red glow under the armor. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Lisa stepped back. "It's responding too fast. It shouldn't be waking at this speed." But the system voice spoke again. "External emergency detected. Priority level Omega. Full awakening required." High above the chamber, screens flashed with live feeds from the battlefield. The engineers watched in horror as human ships were destroyed one by one, enemy beams slicing them like paper. A young officer gasped, "They're losing. Our fleets, they can't stop them." Lisa clenched her fists. This is why Blackstar exists, for the day humans face something they cannot defeat. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed behind them. Commander Raven Holt entered the control room. He was silent, calm, with a cold look in his eyes. Everyone knew Holt, the youngest pilot to ever take command of an experimental ship, the only one to survive Blackstar's first test decades ago. Some called him fearless. Others called him insane. Without a word, Holt stepped to the front console. "Status," he asked quietly. An engineer swallowed nervously. "Blackstar is waking. Faster than expected. We're trying to stabilize the core, but—" Holt cut him off. "Don't slow it down." The engineers stared. "But sir, the ship, it's unstable. We don't know how it will react if awakened at full power." Holt's eyes stayed fixed on the dark ship below. "We don't have time. The enemy fleet is already breaking through our borders. If Blackstar doesn't launch now, humanity dies today." He tapped the console. "Prepare the hangar for immediate deployment." Below them, the giant metallic roof began to split open, revealing the dark night sky above the moon. Cold wind rushed into the chamber, swirling around the ship as the ceiling opened wider and wider. The moon's thin atmosphere shimmered under the stars. For a moment, Everything felt eerily quiet. Then Blackstar's engines ignited. No flames. No smoke. Instead, a deep red energy wrapped around its body, like liquid fire. It rose slowly, almost gracefully, but with a weight that made the ground shake. The engineers watched in awe, unable to speak. Blackstar was unlike any ship they had ever seen. Its presence alone felt like standing next to a sleeping monster, one that might devour everything once awake. The control screens displayed warnings: overload, energy surge, unstable systems. Yet the ship kept rising. Holt stepped onto a small platform that began carrying him toward the ship's entrance. Lisa ran to him. "Commander, this isn't safe. Blackstar was not designed for single-pilot launches." Holt stopped and looked at her. His voice was calm. "Blackstar doesn't need a crew. It only needs someone willing to face death." Lisa shook her head. "The last pilot who tried." "I know," Holt interrupted. "I was there." He stepped onto the platform without hesitation. The platform lifted him upward until he reached a glowing red entrance on the ship's side. The door opened on its own, recognizing him. Inside, the ship was dark, silent. As Holt stepped in, red lights turned on along the walls, leading him deeper inside like the ship was guiding him. He reached the command chair, black, metallic, almost throne-like. He sat. The moment he touched the controls, the ship spoke in a deep, artificial voice. Pilot recognized. "Commander Raven Holt. Welcome back." Holt exhaled slowly. "Blackstar, it's been a long time." The ship responded. "Threat level extreme. Enemy fleet size, overwhelming. Human survival probability, 3% without Blackstar intervention." Holt gripped the control sphere. "Then let's change the numbers." Outside, the giant ship slowly rose through the opening roof, leaving the underground chamber behind. The moon's surface shook as red energy wrapped around the ship, like burning wings. Far above, stars reflected on its black armor. Engineers watched in silence, fear and hope mixing in their hearts. Lisa whispered, "Humanity's last hope is a ghost from the past." Blackstar tilted upward, engines humming like a roaring beast waking fully. Holt gave one command: "Blackstar, launch." And with a sudden burst of red energy, the dark ship shot into the sky, leaving a trail of burning light behind as it raced toward the battlefield and toward a war humanity was already losing. Far across the battlefield, deep inside the command deck of the enemy flagship, the Alien War Council gathered around a massive holographic map, glowing blue in the dark chamber. They watched human ships scatter like frightened insects as their powerful war fleets pushed forward. Laughter echoed through the metallic halls, sharp and prideful. The alien commander, a tall creature with foreglowing eyes, lifted his head proudly and hissed, "Humans run again. They always run. This war is already over." His officers nodded, their strange armor shining under the cold lights. They zoomed in on Horizon Sector, watching human ships desperately try to hold the line. Every time one tried to break formation, the enemy beams cut through it like slicing through cloth. Victory felt easy. Too easy. One of the alien strategists tapped a long claw on the map. "No sign of human reinforcements. Their fleet is collapsing. They will beg soon." The commander smirked. "Let them beg." But at that exact moment, the holographic map flickered. For a second, every enemy ship on the screen glitched, symbols shaking violently. The officers frowned. "A malfunction," one asked. Another replied, "Impossible. This system never fails." The map flickered again, then froze completely. The alien commander leaned forward, annoyed, and slammed his hand on the console, but his eyes widened when the screen suddenly rebooted. A new symbol appeared. Not human, not alien. A black shape with no data, no reading, no signature. Just darkness. The room fell silent. Every alien stared. "What is that ship?" one whispered. "Scan it," the commander ordered. The officers tried, but their scanner shut off instantly, sparks flying from the devices. "System overload," a technician shouted. "The ship is absorbing our scan signals." Panic started to creep into their voices. The commander narrowed his eyes. "No ship can do that." But then came the sound, Something faint, strange, like a distant hum. It wasn't coming through speakers. It wasn't from the room. It vibrated in the metal itself. The alien commander turned sharply. "Where's that sound coming from?" The technician looked at him with fear. It's coming from behind our fleet." The commander spun toward the giant window overlooking space. His four eyes widened. A shadow slowly appeared from the darkness, not jumping from warp like normal ships, not flashing into existence. No, this thing simply appeared, like it was already there but hidden until now. The USS Blackstar. Its armor reflected no light. Its shape almost blended into the void. Aliens across the bridge felt a cold shiver run through their bodies. "Impossible," someone whispered. "No human ship moves like that." On the battlefield, human ships that were fleeing suddenly stopped as sensors lit up with a new message. "Blackstar has arrived." A cheer rose across the human comm channels, weak but full of hope. Even Horizon's crew stared at the shadow with disbelief. "It's real," one said. The stories were true. Commander Holt inside Blackstar stayed calm, his eyes scanning the enemy formation. "Begin threat evaluation." Blackstar's artificial voice answered. "Threat overwhelming, but target fear levels rising. Advantage psychological." Holt smirked. "Good." Meanwhile, the enemy commander tried to regain control. "Lock weapons," he roared. "Destroy that thing." But none of their targeting systems worked. Their screens glitched every time they tried to lock onto Blackstar. Worse, their internal lights flickered, and a heavy pressure spread through the bridge. "What is it doing to us?" the strategist cried out. "It is interfering with our systems. This shouldn't be possible." Blackstar moved closer. No engine flare. No sound. Just silent motion, fast and terrifying. Human soldiers watching whispered things like, "It's like a predator." "No, it's worse." Holt gripped the controls. The ship responded as if reading his mind. In the enemy flagship, one alien officer shouted, "Open fire! Fire anything we can." Beams shot across space, lighting the battlefield with blinding blue energy, but every shot missed. Blackstar didn't dodge. It simply wasn't where the enemy predicted. It moved in ways their systems couldn't understand. Their beams passed through empty space again and again. "Our targeting systems cannot track it." "Impossible. No ship is that fast." This is unnatural." Holt watched calmly. "They are panicking." Blackstar's voice replied, "Confirmed." The enemy commander tried one last desperate order. "Focus all ships. Surround it." But as their fleets moved in, the Blackstar vanished. One moment it was there, an ominous shadow, and the next it disappeared like smoke. The enemy bridge shook with terror. "Where did it go? We've lost visual. No sensors can track it." And then, the lights in every enemy ship dimmed. For 3 silent seconds, space went dark. On the 4th second, Blackstar reappeared right behind the enemy flagship, so close its black armor almost touched theirs. The enemy commander stared at it, his eyes full of fear. "That thing was just in front of us." Holt leaned forward. "Let's give them a greeting." Blackstar's red glow brightened, pulsing like a heartbeat. The pressure in the enemy flagship grew stronger, almost crushing. Officers gasped for air as their systems died one by one. "What is this ship?" the alien commander shouted, voice trembling. "What did the humans build?" But the truth hit him too late. The humans had not built a weapon. They had awakened a monster. The enemy fleet's laughter was gone, replaced only by fear, and the silence was about to break in fire. The battlefield became unnaturally quiet as the Blackstar hovered behind the enemy flagship like a silent shadow, waiting to strike. Human ships stopped firing, afraid to even move, watching the dark monster-shaped vessel with wide eyes. The enemy fleets froze too, their confidence melting into raw fear. No one had ever seen a ship appear out of nowhere, break targeting systems, and crush scanners with its presence alone. Commander Holt sat calmly inside Blackstar's command chair, surrounded by glowing red lines of energy that circled the cockpit like living threads. His voice was steady as he said, "Blackstar, prepare primary cannon." The ship responded with a deep metallic vibration that echoed through the battlefield. A low hum filled the air, so faint at first that only a few soldiers noticed it. But it grew louder, deeper, heavier, until every ship on both sides felt it in their bones. Inside the enemy flagship, officers grabbed their heads in pain. "What is that sound?" one screamed. My ears, my ears." Their commander slammed his claws on the console. "Shut it out. Block the frequency." But they couldn't. As the hum grew stronger, bright red energy lines crawled across Blackstar's hull like veins awakening. Human soldiers stared in awe. "It's charging," one whispered on the comms. "I've never seen a cannon like that." Horizon's crew watched from a distance, fear mixed with hope. Captain Arlen whispered, "Please, please let this work." The enemy fleets finally snapped out of their shock. "Target that ship," the alien commander roared. "Fire everything." Thousands of blue and white beams shot toward Blackstar, lighting space like a storm. But the beams bent away before touching its armor, sliding along invisible energy around it. "Our weapons are being redirected," an alien technician cried. "It's impossible." Blackstar did not dodge. It didn't even move. It simply absorbed the enemy assault without a scratch. Inside, Holt watched the energy meters rise. Primary cannon at 40%. The hum grew louder, so loud that even Horizon's metal floor vibrated. Some crew members covered their ears even through their helmets. The enemy flagship's windows cracked under the deep pressure of the sound. Officers fell to their knees. "Stop that ship. Destroy it. Why won't it die?" But there was no stopping it. Blackstar's dark armor began glowing in patterns, ancient symbols that no one understood. Holt took a deep breath. Blackstar full charge. The ship answered. Primary cannon at 100%. Firing sequence ready. For one long moment, space went completely silent, like the battlefield itself was holding its breath. Then a tiny red spark formed at the front of the Blackstar. It grew brighter, until the entire ship lit up like a burning star. And then the Blackstar fired. A thin beam of red energy shot forward, not thick, not explosive, but sharp, straight, and unbelievably fast, like a line of pure fire slicing through space. The beam hit the enemy battleship, directly in the center. There was no explosion, no dramatic burst. Instead, the ship simply vanished. 1 second it was there, the next second, it was gone, cut out of existence, leaving only floating dust and a glowing red trail where metal once existed. The enemy fleets went silent. Human ships went silent. Nobody could understand it. That was a battleship, a human officer whispered. Blackstar erased it. Another officer gasped. That wasn't even a big blast. Commander Holt watched calmly. Target status? Blackstar answered. Objective eliminated. Energy expenditure minimal. Minimal. Blackstar had destroyed a supersized alien battleship using a tiny fraction of its power. Terror spread through the enemy fleets. Ships began breaking formation, turning in random directions, trying to escape. Enemy officers shouted in panic. Retreat. That weapon, nothing can survive it. Fall back. Fall back. The enemy commander slammed his fist in fury and fear. No. Stand your ground. It cannot fire again that quickly. But Blackstar was already charging a second beam, and a third, and a fourth. The alien commander's voice cracked. No. You said that thing needed time to charge. The technician screamed. IT doesn't follow any rules we know. Holt heard the fear from the enemy broadcasts, and he knew the truth. They finally understood what Blackstar was. Not a ship. A warning. Holt spoke softly. Blackstar, release next volley. The ship hummed again, its energy swirling like red fire around its hull. 4 beams shot out in different directions, slicing through 4 enemy cruisers at once. Each ship silently vanished, the cuts so clean they dissolved into dust. Chaos erupted. Alien screamed. It's a demon. Human weapon. Run. The shadow ship is cursed. Human soldiers, despite fear, felt hope rising. For the first time in the battle, they saw something stronger than the enemy, something that belonged to them. Horizon's bridge erupted in cheers. Yes, Blackstar did it. We can win this. Captain Arlen allowed himself a small smile. So the stories were true. Holt continued scanning the battlefield. Blackstar, how many enemies remain? The ship answered coldly. Too many. Threat level still overwhelming. Holt tightened his grip on the controls. Then we keep going. But he noticed something on the far edge of the battlefield. Enemy ships retreating, sending urgent messages to their empire. The news of Blackstar's arrival was spreading. Fear was spreading. And Holt knew more enemies would come. Bigger ones. Stronger ones. We've only just begun, he whispered. Blackstar's red glow pulsed like a heartbeat. And the battlefield, once filled with enemy laughter, was now filled with silence and the fear of what Blackstar would do next. The enemy fleets broke formation completely, their once perfect battle lines turning into waves of panic as the Blackstar hovered silently in the center of the battlefield like a dark omen. Ships that had marched forward with pride were now rushing to escape, engines burning at full power as alien commanders screamed orders that no one followed. Fear had crushed their discipline. On the human side, ships watched in stunned amazement as the enemy scattered. Many pilots had to remind themselves to breathe. Horizon's bridge was filled with loud voices, but none of them sounded afraid anymore. They're falling back, one officer shouted. They're actually running. Captain Arlen stared at the screen, hardly believing what he saw. Do not chase them, he ordered. Keep formation. Let Blackstar lead. The truth was simple. Nobody wanted to get in the way of the shadow ship. Out in the dark, Commander Holt inside Blackstar noticed exactly what was happening. Enemy ships were trying to jump out of the sector, activating their drive cores in desperation, forming bright blue rings of energy at their backs. Holt narrowed his eyes. Blackstar, can we stop their escape? The ship's deep voice answered. Yes. Activating quantum interference field. In the enemy flagship, chaos grew. Officers slammed their claws on dead consoles. Every jump drive warning light flashed red. Our engines are failing, a pilot screamed. The jump systems are being blocked. The commander shouted back. Impossible. No ship can block a full fleet's drive systems. But the answer came from the screens that still worked. Blackstar's presence was bending space itself. Human ships watched as streaks of red energy drifted out from the Blackstar and spread like soft waves across the battlefield. The waves were quiet, gentle even, but their effect was terrifying. Every enemy jump ring flickered, then collapsed. They're trapped, Holt said softly. Laughter broke out on some human ships, quiet, shocked laughter of people who had been prepared to die but were suddenly being given a chance. The enemy fleets, however, reacted with pure terror. We cannot escape. Their weapon is stopping us. No ship can do this. The alien commander tried to shout orders, but his voice cracked. Regroup. Regroup and prepare to. He didn't finish. Blackstar moved. Not fast. Not slow. Just deliberate. Like a predator choosing which prey to kill first. Holt spoke calmly. Begin next attack. Blackstar's armor glowed again with red lines, but this time the energy did not form a beam. It expanded into a wide circular wave, almost invisible except for a faint shimmer of light. The wave floated outward, touching the nearest cluster of enemy ships. And then, like paper turning to ash, 5 alien destroyers dissolved silently. No explosion. No fire. Just dust. The remaining enemy ships screamed through open channels. It's disintegrating our fleet. Retreat, please retreat. Commander, we must flee. But retreat was no longer an option. Their engines flickered, their scanners died, and Blackstar continued forward, step by step, calm and unstoppable. Horizon's bridge fell silent as they watched the wave of destruction. Captain Arlen whispered, "That wasn't even a direct attack." A young officer, hands trembling, said, Sir, this is beyond any human technology. Are we sure it's safe for us?" Arlen didn't answer. He didn't know. No one knew. Blackstar was fighting for humanity, but no one could deny how frightening the ship had become. Back in the enemy flagship, the alien commander slammed his fist again. "I refuse to die like this. All ships, aim every weapon at the Blackstar. Even if you miss, fire until your cores burn out." For the first time since the battle began, the enemy fired with desperation instead of confidence. Thousands of shots crossed space again, creating a storm of energy beams. Some hit their allies, others vanished in strange distortions in the air, but none reached Blackstar. Holt watched the chaos with cold focus. Blackstar highlight escaping ships. Dozens of red markers appeared on the screen. Enemy vessels trying to hide behind debris, using destroyed ships as cover. Holt tightened his grip. Eliminate them. Blackstar responded instantly. 3 rapid beams fired, each thin and precise, cutting through asteroid fields, shattered metal, and finally reaching the hiding ships. All 3 enemy vessels disappeared in silence. Holt sat back. This battle is ending soon. But then the ship gave a new alert. Commander, long-range transmissions detected. Enemy requesting backup from main Empire fleet. Holt's eyes hardened. So they've called for help. The help was no small matter. The alien empire had thousands of fleets, many stronger than the one Blackstar had just destroyed. If reinforcements arrived, the next fight would be even bigger. But that was a problem for later. Right now, Holt had a trapped fleet to finish. Back on Horizon, Captain Arlen received a message from Blackstar. Enemy escape impossible. Continue defense. Stand by. Arlen nodded and relayed the message, though part of him shook inside. Blackstar was now giving orders to the entire fleet, and everyone was listening. The enemy commander stared through the cracked window of his bridge as Blackstar drifted closer. "We should have destroyed them before they built this monster," he whispered. Now it's too late." Blackstar stopped just in front of the flagship, its red glow lighting the alien faces with horror. Holt gave the final command of the battle. "Blackstar, end this fleet." The ship hummed one last time. A massive ring of crimson energy formed around its hull. Then it expanded outward like a growing sun. Every enemy ship caught in the wave froze mid-motion, hulls cracking, armor breaking apart, before turning to dust and fading into the void. In less than 5 seconds, the enemy fleet was gone. All of it. Human ships stared in silence. The battlefield was empty except for them and Blackstar. Commander Holt exhaled slowly. Sector clear. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The enemy empire would not ignore what happened here. And when they returned, they would bring something far worse. Far beyond the ruined battlefield, deep in the cold heart of the alien empire, a massive war station floated in the darkness like a sleeping titan. Inside its command chamber, hundreds of alien generals and high-ranking officers stood in silence as emergency messages flashed across the holoscreens. Footage from the destroyed fleet played again and again, ships vanishing like dust, beams cutting through battleships, and in every frame, one shadow stood at the center. The USS Blackstar. The alien emperor, a towering creature with glowing silver eyes, watched the footage without blinking. His voice was low, chilling, and heavy with rage. One human ship destroyed an entire fleet. No one dared answer. No one dared breathe. The emperor slammed his staff on the floor, creating a shockwave that made even the strongest officers tremble. "Send the devourer." The room went ice cold. Some officers gasped. Others stepped back. The devourer was not a normal warship. It was the Empire's greatest weapon, 10 times larger than any other ship, built from forbidden technology, armed with energy strong enough to break planets. It had never lost in 900 years. Activating it meant only one thing. The Empire was frightened. The Emperor growled, "If humans unleash demons from their darkness, then we will unleash ours." Alarms blared across the station as giant mechanical doors opened, revealing a colossal ship floating inside a chamber the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered in black armor lined with glowing blue cracks, like veins pulsing with dangerous energy. Engines the size of cities roared to life, shaking the entire station. The devourer slowly rose, surrounded by waves of energy that bent the air around it. Officers whispered, "It wakes. The old monster rises again." If this cannot stop the human shadow ship, nothing can. While the devourer prepared for launch, out on the battlefield, Blackstar floated silently among the fading dust of the destroyed enemy fleet. Human ships formed a cautious circle around it, still unsure how close they should go. On horizon, Captain Arlen received a sudden burst of static, then a deep warning tone. Incoming jump signature, the computer announced. Massive energy detected. Horizon's officers paled. Massive? How massive? The computer paused, then replied. Size unknown. Larger than any recorded ship. Captain Arlen whispered. Holt, please be ready. Blackstar sensed it too. Without Holt pressing anything, the screens lit up. Unknown energy entering battlefield. Blackstar's voice said. Brace for impact. Holt tightened his harness. Show me. Space trembled. Not the normal shake from a jump. No, this felt like reality itself was cracking open. A bright blue tear split the sky, stretching wider and wider until it became a massive glowing wound in space. Every human ship backed away in fear. Even Blackstar felt the pressure, its hull humming louder. And then it arrived. The Devourer. A ship so large it blocked the stars behind it. Its armor glowed with blue cracks, its engines roaring so loudly that Horizon's hull shook for miles away. Human soldiers stared in disbelief. How big is that thing? It's bigger than a station. That's not a ship, that's a monster. Holt's eyes narrowed. Blackstar analyze. The ship responded instantly. Warning. Enemy vessel is 10.4 times Blackstar size. Energy levels far exceed human weapons. Probability of human fleet survival, extremely low. Holt smirked slightly. We'll see. On the enemy vessel, the alien emperor's voice echoed through every deck. Destroy the human shadow. Leave nothing behind. The Devourer charged its weapons. Blue energy spiraled around its front cannon, forming a bright, swirling star of power. Horizon scanners overloaded, sparks flying. Sir, the energy reading is off the scale. We've never seen anything like this. Holt felt the pressure growing. Blackstar. Shields to max. Shields rising. The ship responded. Warning. Impact will be extreme. The Devourer fired. A massive beam of blue energy shot across the battlefield, roaring like a storm, ripping through space with unstoppable force. Human ships screamed warnings across the comm lines. Blackstar move. That shot will kill you. Holt, get out of the way. But Blackstar did not move. It held its place. The beam hit. A blinding flash swallowed both ships. Horizon's crew shielded their eyes. For a moment, no one could see anything. Then slowly, the light faded. Blackstar still stood. Its red shield pulsed like a heartbeat. Holt breathed slowly. Shields at. The ship replied. 74%. Operational. Human ships cheered. Aliens on the Devourer panicked. How did it survive? That was our strongest attack. The alien commander hissed. Fire again. The Devourer charged for another shot. Holt leaned forward. Blackstar, send them a message. The ship's hull glowed with deep red lines, brighter than before. Preparing counterattack, the system said. Holt whispered. Let's see if legends can bleed. Far across the battlefield, the Devourer's crew felt something they had never known: fear. This was no ordinary enemy. This was humanity's answer to extinction. And the silent war between two monsters was about to begin. The battlefield became painfully silent as two giants faced each other across the dark sea of space. The Devourer glowing with blue rage, and the USS Blackstar burning with deep red fire. Every human ship held position, too scared to move, too shocked to understand how Blackstar was still alive. On horizon, Captain Arlen stared at the screen with wide, trembling eyes. This is not a normal fight, he whispered. This is something bigger. His officers nodded slowly, unable to look away from the two massive silhouettes about to destroy each other. Holt sat inside Blackstar's command chair, gripping the armrests tightly. He could feel the ship's heartbeat through the metal, as if the vessel itself was preparing for something dangerous. Blackstar, Holt said quietly, scan the enemy's weak points. The ship answered with a calm, deep voice. Scanning. Warning. Enemy armor is reinforced with quantum shielding. Weak points limited. Only vulnerable area detected is the core reactor, exposed during charge cycles. Holt smirked. So we hit them when they attack, Blackstar replied. Correct, but timing must be perfect. Failure will result in destruction. Holt leaned back, breathing slowly. Then let's not fail. Across the void, the Devourer roared with power. Blue energy spiraled around its cannons, gathering into a massive swirling star. The alien commander bared his sharp teeth. Destroy it now. The Devourer fired. The beam shook the battlefield, tearing through space like a raging river. Human ships backed away from the pressure alone. The blast headed straight for Blackstar. But this time, Blackstar didn't stay still. With a sudden burst of crimson energy, the ship darted to the left, faster than any large vessel should ever move. Holt felt the pressure slam into him. Blackstar's movements were intense, almost too intense for a human body. But he endured it. Again, Holt shouted. The Devourer fired a second blast, faster and stronger. Holt pushed the control forward. Blackstar rotated, ducked, then slid under the beam, leaving a trail of red sparks behind. Human ships watching the maneuver gasped in disbelief. Is that ship alive? How can it move like that? It's dancing. Even the alien emperor, watching from the Devourer's command feed, leaned forward in shock. Impossible. A ship that size cannot move with such speed. Blackstar's voice spoke to Holt again. Warning. Enemy core reactor exposed during charge. Chance of successful strike, 62%. Holt wiped sweat from his forehead. Good enough. The Devourer charged again, its side vents opening to release massive waves of energy. Holt narrowed his eyes. There. That's the weak spot. Blackstar confirmed. Core reactor exposed. Firing solution ready. Holt raised his hand. Fire. Blackstar unleashed a red beam. Not a thick beam, but a sharp, precise spear of energy. It shot straight across the battlefield and struck the Devourer's exposed vent. A massive explosion burst from the side of the alien ship. Blue fire spilled out like blood from a wound. Alien crew members screamed, alarms blaring through the Devourer. We've been hit. How? How did they time it? The alien emperor snarled. Seal the wound. Redirect power. I want that human ship broken. On horizon, hope flickered for the first time. Blackstar hit it. They can hurt that monster. Holt felt a small spark of satisfaction. Good, but that wasn't enough. Blackstar agreed. Correct. Enemy still at 89% power. The Devourer roared again. Its armor closed over the damaged vent. Blue fire burned brighter than ever. It's angry. Holt muttered. Good. Let it come. The Devourer fired a barrage of massive beams, 5, 10, then 20. Holt gritted his teeth. Blackstar dodged, twisted, and curved through the chaos. But the pressure started to grow. Alarms echoed inside the cockpit. Warning. Shields at 53%. Holt felt dizziness hitting him. The ship's wild movements were starting to push his body past its limits. But he refused to stop. Blackstar, we need to hit that core again. Understood, the ship said. The Devourer charged its largest cannon. Blue energy swallowed half its front hull, glowing like a newborn sun. The reactor vents opened again. Holt saw his chance. Now, Blackstar fired another precise red beam. But this time, the Devourer shifted at the last second. The shot missed by inches. Holt cursed under his breath. They're learning. Blackstar responded. Enemy adapting. Probability of successful direct hit decreasing. Holt clenched his teeth. Then we getting closer. Blackstar hesitated. Warning, close-range combat with the Devourer is extremely dangerous. Holt stood from his seat, placing his hand on the glowing core panel. We don't have a choice. The ship's heartbeat grew louder. Understood. Engaging close-range protocol. Blackstar's engines roared, glowing red-hot. The ship surged forward at impossible speed, racing straight toward the Devourer. Human crews watching screamed. What is he doing? He'll be crushed. Hold no. Alien officers panicked too. The human ship is charging. Stop it. Destroy it. The Devourer fired everything. Beams, missiles, cannons, an entire storm of deadly light. Holt kept his hand on the core panel. Blackstar's voice grew deeper. Brace yourself. Blackstar twisted through the firestorm, slipping between beams, diving under explosions, climbing through burning shockwaves. It was like watching a red comet dodging the end of the world. Holt's breathing grew heavy. Almost there. The Devourer opened its core vent again, gathering power for final shot. Holt whispered, "Now or never." Blackstar aimed at the exposed vent again. But something unexpected happened, something no one saw coming. A second vent opened. A trap. Holt froze. "No," Blackstar spoke, voice tight. "Warning, enemy core has evolved." The Devourer glowed brighter. Holt realized too late, they weren't just fighting a ship. They were fighting a living weapon. And now, the Devourer was ready to kill. The battlefield trembled under the power of the Devourer as it rotated its massive body, preparing for a final strike. Blackstar hovered mere kilometers away, red energy pulsing violently along its armor, every movement precise yet tense. Holt gripped the control armrest so tightly his knuckles turned white, sweat running down his face as the alarms inside the ship screamed like a chorus of panicked voices. Blackstar analyzed. "What is the threat level now?" he shouted. The ship's calm voice replied, "Warning. Enemy core has initiated secondary weapons protocol. All previous calculations obsolete. Probability of hull survival, 14%. Holt's heart pounded. 14%. He knew that humans were lucky to survive even one encounter with a regular fleet. And now they were facing the Devourer, a living weapon built to annihilate planets, with only one ship standing between it and the entire human fleet. "We cannot retreat," Holt whispered, almost to himself. "If we leave, everything we've saved will die." Blackstar pulsed brighter. Acknowledged. Engaging evasive and counterattack maneuver simultaneously. Probability of counter success, 47%. Holt swallowed hard. It wasn't enough. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. The Devourer's energy field had grown larger, the vents along its armor shifting like the skin of a living creature, and its weapons glowed blue with a deadly intensity that threatened to tear the fabric of space itself. The alien commander inside the Devourer growled, eyes wide with excitement and rage. "The human ship dares approach my core," he hissed. "Fire everything. End it now." Dozens of beams, missiles, and energy spheres erupted from the Devourer, each one faster, heavier, and brighter than the last. Space itself seemed to bend under the force of the weapons. Holt pressed his hand against the core panel. "Blackstar, weave through them. Get close to that vent." The ship's red glow flared as engines screamed. Blackstar twisted, rolled, and slid through the storm of fire like a shadow dancing on death itself. Human ships in the background watched in awe and terror as the impossible maneuver unfolded. How is it still moving?" whispered an officer aboard Horizon. "It's like it knows the enemy before they even think," said another. Inside the Devourer, alarms blared. Alien officers screamed. Predictive calculations failing. The human ship anticipates every move. "Impossible," the commander shouted. "We cannot allow this." Yet no command could stop what was happening. Blackstar, glowing brighter than ever, zipped through the deadly weapon's fire, its pulse lining every inch of armor with violent red energy. Holt could feel the ship's heartbeat through his body. "Almost there," he murmured. The Devourer began to charge its massive cannon for a planet-breaking shot. Holt knew that if the shot hit, Blackstar would not survive. He gritted his teeth and leaned forward. "Now, fire at the core vent." A red beam shot from Blackstar, a single thin spear of energy faster than the eye could follow. It struck the Devourer's exposed vent dead on, ripping through the reinforced armor. Sparks and energy erupted like a miniature sun, sending shock waves through the enemy ship. The alien commander screamed, How is this possible?" "Shields failing," the chief officer cried. The Devourer roared, spinning violently, trying to close the vent and seal the damage, but Blackstar was relentless. Another red beam fired in rapid succession, cutting the vent further open. The Devourer's blue energy flickered, warning lights screaming like a dying creature. The human fleet could hardly breathe, watching as the impossible unfolded. Holt felt every vibration inside Blackstar as the Devourer's systems tried to retaliate. Beams of blue energy struck the ship from all sides, but each one bent, broke, or slipped harmlessly past. Blackstar's hull shimmered red, absorbing, deflecting, and resisting the deadly fire. Holt's eyes burned as he focused entirely on the task. Keep firing. Keep pressure on the core. Blackstar's voice remained calm, almost cold. Acknowledged. Targeting optimal weak points. Firing sequence engaged. With a final, precise strike, the vent exploded, sending blue fire and smoke cascading outward. The Devourer shuddered violently. Its energy field faltered. Inside, alien officers screamed in panic. The core is destabilizing. The commander's face turned pale, his claws trembling. No, this is impossible. Blue sparks and energy erupted from the damaged core, feeding into massive explosions that rocked the entire battlefield. Human ships cheered from the distance. They did it. Blackstar survived. It's unstoppable. Holt held his breath as the Devourer's massive body began to crack under the strain. The explosions ripped through armor, tore through weapon systems, and shook the remaining alien ships in formation. The Devourer screamed, an unnatural sound that vibrated through space like a dying planet. Then, with one final burst of red and blue energy, colliding violently, the Devourer's hull split open. A shockwave radiated outward, throwing debris and remaining ships in all directions. Silence followed. The human fleet floated among the wreckage, battered but alive. The battlefield was empty except for the victorious USS Blackstar, glowing red, pulsing like a heartbeat. Holt exhaled, finally allowing himself to relax slightly. Blackstar status report. Hull intact. Shields operational at 62%. Enemy fleet eliminated. Sector clear. Holt nodded slowly, though inside he knew the war was far from over. The Empire would return, stronger and smarter. But for now, humanity had a shadow ship that could fight back, a weapon that could face the impossible and survive. The human fleet let out cheers, but Holt remained silent, staring at the stars. This was only the beginning, he whispered. The Empire will come again, and next time it will not be alone. Blackstar pulsed in agreement, ready for whatever awaited them next in the cold, dark void of space. The battlefield was quiet now, but it was a quiet that weighed heavy on every human and alien ship that survived. The wreckage of the Devourer and the destroyed alien fleet floated in pieces, silent monuments to the power of the USS Blackstar. Horizon's bridge buzzed with activity, yet the mood was tense. Captain Arlen stared at the aftermath on the holoscreen, seeing ships shattered, burning, drifting endlessly into the void. "Is everyone accounted for?" he asked quietly. Officers checked status reports, confirming minimal human losses. "We survived," one whispered, almost in disbelief. Holt inside Blackstar, however, remained focused. The ship's red hull pulsed steadily, sensors scanning every inch of the debris, every hidden threat. "Sector secure," Blackstar reported, though Holt knew this security was temporary. He had destroyed an entire fleet, but the Empire would not forget. Across the battlefield, faint energy readings suggested alien survivors were already transmitting messages to distant sectors, warning their Empire of a human shadow ship. Holt frowned. "They'll call reinforcements," he muttered. "Bigger fleets, smarter ships." Blackstar's sensors detected long-range jumps preparing, engines charging in far-off coordinates. "Incoming reinforcements detected," the ship said, calm as ever. Holt's lips pressed tight. "How many?" Blackstar calculated for a moment. Probability of reinforcements within sector, 67%. Estimated fleet size, 12 capital ships, 30 escort ships. Threat level extreme. Holt exhaled slowly. "We have time. Not much, but enough." On Horizon, human pilots celebrated quietly, but the joy was mixed with unease. They had survived an impossible battle, but the Empire was far from defeated. Arlen turned to his officers. "We need to prepare for what comes next. Blackstar will lead. We follow." In the wreckage of the Devourer, alien officers scrambled to escape. The Emperor's voice boomed over emergency channels, rage and fear mingling. "The human shadow ship survives. I will not allow this insult to continue. Every sector must prepare. No mercy. The alien crews knew they were lucky to survive. Many ships were beyond repair, drifting endlessly into empty space. Their morale shattered. Meanwhile, Holt surveyed the battlefield from Blackstar's cockpit. The ship's systems hummed a steady, low tone, like a heartbeat, reassuring yet eerie. He could feel the immense power within the vessel, and he understood something the human fleet would never fully grasp. Blackstar was not just a ship. It was a force of nature, a predator designed to protect humanity against the impossible, but its power was absolute and sometimes frightening even to its own crew. Holt glanced at the human fleet. We need to rebuild, refuel, repair, and prepare for the next wave. Blackstar responded. Affirmative. Preparing sector defenses. Warning. Alien Empire will retaliate stronger and faster. Probability of repeated attack within 72 hours. 82%. Holt's hands tightened on the controls. Then we won't wait for them. We strike first next time. Outside, the debris of the battlefield slowly drifted into the void. The remnants of the Devourer, torn apart and glowing faintly, were a warning for the Empire. Space was silent except for the occasional hum of damaged ships and the low, steady pulse of Blackstar. Holt whispered to himself, "They will remember this day, and humanity will be ready." The fleet followed Blackstar as it led them to a safe zone, away from the chaos but close enough to monitor any signals from the Empire. Horizon's bridge felt a mixture of relief and unease. "We've won the battle, but not the war," Arlen said quietly. Holt nodded, still focused inside Blackstar. "This is only the beginning. The Empire will learn. They will adapt. But we have something they cannot anticipate." Blackstar's red glow pulsed in agreement, almost as if acknowledging Holt's words. The human ships maintained formation, trusting the shadow ship to protect them. But even in victory, a shadow of fear lingered. Far across the sector, faint transmissions began to ping, signals from unknown coordinates. Holt leaned forward. Blackstar tracked those signals. The ship's sensors adjusted. Unknown fleet signatures detected. Energy readings, high. Approach velocity, fast. Holt's eyes narrowed. They've sent scouts, or worse. The Empire will test us again. He pressed a button, sending a signal to Horizon. All ships, prepare for immediate engagement. Blackstar leads. Stay alert. The human crews readied their weapons, tense but determined. "This is not over," Holt whispered, almost to himself. "And the shadows of the Empire are coming for us." Outside, Blackstar's hull pulsed like a heartbeat in the void, a glowing promise of protection, destruction, and power. The battlefield, once filled with death and fear, was now a silent warning for the Empire. Humanity had survived impossible odds, but the war was far from finished. And Blackstar would be there for every next impossible fight. The battlefield was calm now, almost eerily quiet, as the remnants of the destroyed enemy fleets drifted in space like forgotten ghosts, glowing faintly under the light of distant stars. Blackstar hovered at the center, its red glow pulsing steadily, casting an ominous reflection over the human fleet that had followed it through fire, destruction, and impossible odds. Commander Holt sat in the command chair, exhaustion tugging at his body, yet his eyes were sharp, scanning the surrounding space for any signs of the Empire's return. Horizon and the other human ships formed a protective ring around the shadow ship, grateful for its presence, but aware that they were only surviving because Blackstar chose to shield them. The fleet had learned something that day. Fear could not stop a shadow, and strength could take unimaginable forms. Holt pressed a hand to the control panel, feeling the hum of Blackstar's systems beneath his fingers, the heartbeat of the ship resonating with his own. "Status report," he said quietly. Blackstar's calm, metallic voice filled the cockpit. "Sector secure. Hull integrity, 98%. Shields operational, 92%. Enemy fleets destroyed, complete. Probability of immediate attack, moderate to high. Unknown threats detected at long range." Holt nodded slowly. He knew the Empire would retaliate, would send more ships, more monsters, larger weapons, but he also knew one undeniable truth. Humanity now had a protector that the galaxy had never seen before. Beyond the immediate sector, faint signals flickered on the scanners, messages sent by scattered alien survivors, broadcasting warnings and begging for reinforcements. Holt watched them all vanish into space, a silent record of fear. "They will remember this," he murmured. Horizon's crew looked to him, a mix of relief, awe, and lingering tension etched on their faces. "We survived because of the shadow," one officer said softly. Holt allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Not because of luck," he replied. "Because we have something they cannot understand. Blackstar does not fight like a normal ship. It is more than human technology, more than a weapon. It is a force of nature." Outside, the human fleet formed tight formations, engines glowing faintly as they followed Blackstar toward the safe zone Holt had designated, a hidden sector in the depths of space where they could regroup, repair, and plan. Yet even as they moved, every crew member felt the tension of what was coming. The Empire would strike again. Its fleets were vast, its weapons unimaginable, and its hatred for humanity absolute. Holt tapped on the console. Blackstar scanned for reinforcements, locate alien jump points, and prepare countermeasures. Acknowledged, the ship responded. Its sensors stretched across light years, probing for signals, for anomalies, for threats that might arrive before the human fleet could respond. Holt watched the readings carefully, noting every movement. "We are not safe," he said aloud, though the words were almost drowned out by the hum of the ship. "But we are ready." In the distant void, alien scouts observed from afar, shaking in disbelief at the devastation Blackstar had caused. They transmitted warnings to the Empire, speaking of a human ship that moved like a predator, struck like a demon, and survived when nothing else could. The Empire listened and trembled, understanding finally that humanity had something beyond their comprehension. On Horizon, Captain Arlen turned to his officers. "Today we survived. Tomorrow we fight again. We have a weapon the universe cannot ignore, and we will use it wisely." Holt remained seated in Blackstar, silent but alert. His mind raced through strategies, calculations, and probabilities. He knew that the next encounter could be worse, could push him and the ship to their absolute limits, but he also knew the truth that gave him strength. Blackstar would not fail. Not while he stood at its helm. Hours passed, and the human fleet moved steadily, engines humming softly, while Blackstar led the way, scanning, analyzing, and silently preparing for the inevitable confrontation with the Empire. Even in the quiet, the pulse of the ship reminded everyone that power like this could not be ignored, that shadows could survive where light faltered, and that humanity now had a force capable of standing against the impossible. Holt finally allowed himself to lean back, eyes still scanning, heart still racing, but a grim sense of satisfaction spreading through him. "We've won this fight," he whispered, almost to himself. "But the war is not over. Blackstar will be our shield, our sword, and our shadow in the dark. And when they come again, we will be ready." Outside, stars twinkled in the void, indifferent to the struggle below. But in the silence, Blackstar pulsed once more, a heartbeat of fire, shadow, and power. Humanity had survived the impossible. The Empire had seen fear for the first time in centuries. And in the endless dark of space, one shadow stood alone, watching, waiting, ready.